6 on a Thursday, a severe cold front has left extensive damage in Cape Town and Paarl. In fact, evacuations continue as officials assess the damage. The gift of the givers has also stepped in to help as the Weather Service predicts more storms today. Let's get the latest from Colin Deiner from the Western Cape Disaster Management. Colin, a very good morning. I suppose the first question I need to ask you, has power been restored to some of the areas where there were lights out as a result of the heavy rainfall yesterday?
Good morning. Yeah, so we've had our biggest problem was in the Overstrand region from Hermanus all the way to Gansbaai was where we lost 4 pylons. Eskom lost 4 pylons. So work is carried on overnight, obviously with the rain and the bad weather that we've had overnight with the second cold front coming in. That's still a challenge. There's still areas there that are without electricity. Some of the hospitals there are still running on generators. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity today that Eskom would be able to come in and repair. But, you know, we're trying to use the opportunities that we're getting to be able to get to the places that need assistance.
Talk to me about how difficult or challenging that has made your rescue efforts in those areas.
Yeah, look, I think we have quite a few redundancies. We're obviously in the acute stage of this response. We had the first cold front hit early yesterday, the second one hit this morning and through the night. So I think that's going to make it a lot more difficult actually because of areas that have been cut off overnight. We're obviously doing assessments now. It's very difficult for us in terms of moving, patients who might have been injured to hospitals further away, evacuating people. So it's really, this is a major operation. And I think today is going to be a challenge, although we have a bit of a reprieve until Saturday. So that will allow us to prepare, but there's 2 more cold fronts on the way. So, there's really a lot of not only response work, but preparation to come for the next couple of days.
I am hearing you say, Colin, the worst is yet to come. When we talk numbers, what are we talking? How many people have you been able to get to safety, as it were? Have there been any fatalities that you know of?
Yeah, so thankfully there haven't been any fatalities. We got the news earlier this morning of a serious injury, which we are making arrangements now to move that patient by air as soon as the weather permits. There's been a couple of rescue operations that happened where people were cut off in different parts of the province, and there's obviously been several thousand people. I can't put an exact number on it because it's obviously changing as it goes on. But for example, in Rawsonville area, there's 1,000 people that were displaced. And then people have been displaced in various parts of the province. It's mostly on the western side of the Western Cape. What we've seen more towards the Garden route has been more stronger winds and wind damage. So there's large numbers. It keeps increasing. But I think we did a lot of preparation, and I think that has helped us to be able to get to a lot of areas. Obviously, our partners have assisted immensely and will continue to do so.
And with the expected rain over the weekend, Colin, how much more damage do you think we can expect?
Yeah, so, I think the big problem we've got now, and although the Weather Service's prediction for the overnight cold front was that it would not be as serious as the first one, a lot of these areas have reached saturation. So Department of Water and Sanitation have helped a lot with their dam safety people in terms of relieving the pressure on some of the dams. But because we have saturation in a lot of areas, I think we're going to be seeing higher water levels and stronger kind of flooding. So it's definitely going to make it a lot more difficult going into the next few days.
And Colin, for someone who's watching and is in the Western Province right now, how would you like to caution them? What are the areas to avoid, and which areas should they get to in case of an emergency, just to be safe, as it were?
Yeah, so I think what's the first most important thing is listen to the weather warnings. There's going to be a couple of reprieves now in a few days where we're not going to have severe weather, but when the cold fronts come in, then it changes things. So firstly, if you don't have to go outside, don't go outside. We know it's a long weekend, but it's going to be very cold. So stay away if you don't have to travel. Stay away from flooded roads. It doesn't take much for a car to be lifted and swept away. And that's always a tragedy. So, if in any way possible, limit your traveling, stay indoors. It's going to be cold. We're going to have people that are going to be exposed to the cold weather. There are going to be a lot of wind. Stay away from ocean areas. We've got high wave warnings. So those are the kind of things. But I'd say critically, listen to the warnings. We issue a lot of warnings from the disaster center. Weather services issues warnings. Take heed of those warnings, and if specific areas are mentioned, I think it's very important to stay away from that. As emergency services, we have to move on the roads. If we do have very busy roads, it also makes that very difficult.
And Colin, just as my parting shot this morning, obviously the gift of the givers is also assisting you guys in as far as making sure that people have some sort of assistance within this evacuation period. What are you as the disaster management responsible for moving forward exactly?
Yeah, so at the moment, as I said, we're in the acute stage. So firstly, our biggest job now is coordinating responses. So it would be rescue responses, it would be evacuation responses, it would be issuing warnings, communication between all the different role players, Eskom, the Department of Social Development. We also work very, very closely with organizations like Gift of the Givers in terms of coordinating which areas must be attended to. So, there's quite a lot of areas that we cover at this stage. As we move on to the following stages, we'll then go into the assessment stage where we start looking at what the level of damage was. We then start bringing in the various line departments to start assisting with the rebuild. And then, if possible, we will still do an assessment. Do we declare a disaster situation for this? And then we will facilitate a disaster declaration and then funding requests and that kind of thing going forward.